Chapter 1. The first comment. A few days passed before something strange happened. It wasn't much at first, just a comment under the Reddit post we'd made. But the words sent a chill down my spine. Someone had replied, "I remember Emma. Are you sure she's gone?" I stared at the screen for a long time, my pulse quickening. At first, I thought it was just another troll playing along with our joke. But the more I looked at it, the more unnerving it became. The comment seemed too specific, too personal, as if the writer knew more than they should. I clicked on the username, curious about who this person might be. Their profile was bare. No posts, no history, just a recently created account, nothing at all to explain why they'd commented. The user's profile picture was a dark silhouette, like someone who had gone to great lengths to remain anonymous. I shrugged it off. It was a weird coincidence, sure, but it wasn't worth losing sleep over. After all, it wasn't like anyone could actually know about Emma. She was a character we had made up for the post. But then the odd occurrences started to pile up.
Chapter 2. The knocking. It was around midnight a few days later when the first incident happened. I was in my room alone, studying for a psychology exam, when I heard a knock at the door. At first, I thought it was just Mike coming back from his night out, but then I remembered that he was going to be out for the entire weekend with his girlfriend. He wouldn't be back until Sunday. The knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate taps, almost too soft to hear, but loud enough to make my heart race. I wasn't sure what to do. I hesitated, standing frozen in place, waiting for the knock to come again. But it didn't. It was like the person on the other side had vanished. Maybe I was just hearing things, I thought. Maybe it was the wind, or maybe it was the stress of exams getting to me. But as I turned away from the door, the knock came a third time, this time louder. 3 more taps. I quickly opened the door, hoping to catch whoever it was in the act. The hallway outside my dorm room was empty, the lights flickering in the dimly lit corridor. No one was there. I stood there for a few moments, my heart pounding in my chest. It was completely silent except for the low hum of the fluorescent lights above me. I stepped back inside and closed the door, locking it behind me, but the unease lingered.
Chapter 3. The note. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of dread. I had barely gotten any sleep, my mind still racing with the sounds of the knocking. As I sat at my desk, I noticed something strange. On my whiteboard, where I usually wrote my class schedule, there was a message. It wasn't written in my handwriting. It was neat and careful, the letters perfectly formed. Her name was Emma. My stomach twisted into knots. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I was just imagining it. Maybe Mike had written it as a joke, or maybe it was some prankster from down the hall who had seen our Reddit post. But the message felt too real, too personal. I wiped it off with a damp cloth, but my mind couldn't let go of the words. Her name was Emma.
Chapter 4. The investigation. He tried to move on with my day, focusing on schoolwork and pushing the bizarre happenings to the back of my mind. But later that afternoon, something made me stop in my tracks. I was in the dorm's library, scrolling through old resident records, when I came across something that stopped me cold. I'd been investigating the history of room 306, mostly out of curiosity, but I hadn't expected to find anything remotely connected to the story I had written. But there it was, Emma Richards, a student who had lived in room 306 for several years. According to the records, she had mysteriously disappeared on October 3 Road, 1998. No explanation, no reason why she was gone, just a line in the file that read, Emma Richards, room 306, last known residence. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This couldn't be real. Could it? I asked the librarian about Emma, but she seemed distant and uncomfortable when I mentioned her name. Emma? Oh, I remember her. It was years ago. No one really talks about it much anymore. I pressed her for details, but she wouldn't say much more. Instead, she handed me a faded envelope. It was a letter from the school administration detailing Emma's disappearance. The envelope had been sealed for years, and when I opened it, there was a small note written in neat, flowing handwriting. Don't look for me. The same exact words that had been written on the notes I had received. I felt a rush of panic. The world around me seemed to blur. This was no longer just a prank. There was something sinister going on, something beyond my control.
Chapter 5. The end scene for her.
Chapter 6. The final reveal. The following days were a blur of paranoia and fear. I barely slept, constantly on edge, waiting for anything to happen. But then, one night, as I walked down the hallway to my room, I saw something that froze me in place. The door to room 306 was wide open. I knew I had to go in. It was the only way to end this madness. I walked inside, feeling like I was about to cross some invisible threshold. The room looked exactly like it had when I first arrived at the door. Mold, worn furniture, peeling wallpaper, but there was something off. Something cold in the air, like I wasn't alone. As I stepped deeper into the room, I saw it. A faded photograph on the desk. In it, standing in front of the dorm, was Emma. But there was something disturbing about the photo. Emma was smiling, but her eyes were completely black.
Sometimes the tales we think we're conjuring up are the ones that have been yearning for us to recall them.